All right, good evening, YouTube. My name is John, and I'm starting up a sports cards channel. And I know what you're thinking, oh boy, here we go. Another channel talking about baseball cards, and you're probably thinking, what a nerd. So I decided to name my channel Nerding Out with Cards. Um, where I'm from, I claim St. Louis is my hometown. That's where my parents are from. I grew up as a Navy brat until I was 17. If you couldn't tell, got the blue note here, 12 in a row tonight. That Cardinals right here. Um, I am currently active duty Coast Guard. I've been in for almost 19 and a half years and retiring in about a year. So right now I'm kind of all over the place, stationed in Seattle. But I got a house in the St. Louis area, and that's where I'm currently at on leave. Um, Spent a lot of time in California because that's where my ship is dry docked at currently. So I'll be back out there in about a month. Um, so that's real quick and dirty, like, who I am, where I'm from. Uh, as far as my favorite teams, as I alluded to before, you got the Blues, Cardinals, a little bit of St. Louis City SC. I'm not too big of a soccer fan, but we got a team now. So, been to one game, it's pretty cool. I don't know too much about soccer cards. Other than that, got the, uh, you know, what I consider myself a Chiefs fan now, because back in January 2016, when Enos Stanley Kroenke, that jackwagon, moved the Rams back to California, I had to decide, okay, well, am I just going to say screw football altogether, or pick another team? And it just so happened that was the same year I advanced to Chief Petty Officer in the Coast Guard, and the Chiefs play in Missouri, so I was like, oh, I'll be a Chiefs fan. It's been way better as a Chiefs fan than it was as a Rams fan that last decade that we didn't support the team even though they sucked. Um, so those are my favorite teams. I got as far as my collecting background, I've been collecting as far as back as I can remember, 7 years old or so. Or we took a family vacation back to St. Louis at that time, and my dad bought me a Topps team set that I can remember. And walking around the ballpark before a game, got to meet Ozzie Smith, and I was hooked from there. So I've been collecting, since then. I wouldn't say I really took a break. It was more just kind of like off and on kind of thing, but a lot of it was, some caught my eye, or a lot of it was knowledge based, which future videos I'll get into, like especially with my Ozzie Smith collection. That's my main PC right there for his playing days. But I guess I'll get more into that later on down the road. As far as what I collect, I would say I'm more of a player collector. Ozzie Smith, super heavy. That's my absolute all-time favorite. As a matter of fact, last year I met Ozzie Smith. It was like third time I met him. Took my baseball cards there and got a picture with him. Had it turned into a baseball card. I'll get more into that later. Willie McGee, super huge favorite of him. Click scope's a little bit different for him. I'm going more like rookie year kind of things. He's got 11 or 12 83 cards, so I try to collect those. Missing a couple. My guy on the team currently is Nolan Arenado. Hopefully they don't trade him. His defense is outstanding. And you're going to notice a theme here too with baseball players. Yadier Molina. Yachty, either you love him or you hate him, but man, his defense out of this world. Getting a little more hot and heavy into it in recent years, but you got Red Shandies, very underrated person within baseball history when you take into the totality of his career, impact, and, you know, just guy just everywhere he went, there was winning. So, super huge favorite of mine, Ken Boyer. Picked this card up at a card show in California. I had to rescue it from that state, bring it back home. But I actually bought it from Greg at Midlife Cards. His dad had a table, and I bought a few Ken Boyer cards there, working on that run. And with all these players, you know, I had got a little bit of a different kind of scope for each one. You know, it's trying to collect all of them for all players and whatnot. There's just, I don't make that much money, you know, being in the military and all. All-time favorite player, football player, you got Isaac Bruce. Man, I remember when the Rams moved here, you know, Jerome Bettis was supposed to be the guy, you know, and well, lo and behold, Isaac Bruce was the guy. Another huge favorite of mine, Kurt Warner. Talking about winning, took 2 crap franchises to the Super Bowl. Current favorite, and this is before Mahomes showed up and whatnot. Everybody thinks of it, you know, now Taylor Swift and all this other stuff, but Travis Kelce, you know, talk more about this card in future videos. Got a screaming deal on that because way ahead of the curve. As far as like non-St. Louis, non-Chiefs and whatnot, there's a couple players I really, really like. You got Bob Feller. The only Chief Petty Officer in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. Super cool. And then Salvador Perez. That guy is awesome. So those are, you know, like I said, I would say more player collector. One of the things I've been doing, because I'll get more into this background, whatnot, but, you know, everybody loves, you know, the Hall of Fame, Hall of Fame, Hall of Fame. And there's so, and, you know, it's like, you know, who's not in the Hall of Fame? Who should be in the Hall of Fame? You know, thinking of a guy like Ken Boyer here. But, you know, screw it. You know, teams got their own Hall of Fames now. And I think that's amazing because there's so many great people, players, and whatnot that, you know, won't, you can question whether or not shouldn't be in the National Hall of Fames, right? But, you know, all those players and whatnot, all those teams, I don't really care about them anyway. But our Hall of Fame, you know, for at least the Cardinals and teams all over the place have their own Hall of Fames now. We get to vote, you know, which is pretty cool. And so one of the things I started doing was Cardinals Hall of Fame collection. That's what got me into, you know, a lot of the pre-war stuff. You know, you see, heck, I got a Playing Days Rogers Hornsby in there. It's pretty amazing. I obviously don't care about condition, but, you know, it's got Ken Boyer in there. You know, that's great. You know, should Curt Flood be in the Hall of Fame? Well, he's in our Hall of Fame, so that's all I care about. And, you know, you keep going through, like, should Jim Edmonds be in the Hall of Fame? Well, who cares? He's in our Hall of Fame. And make sure that, you know, players that are super important to a franchise don't get forgotten about, like Ken, you know, Bob Force there. You know, so every year, you know, can't wait for the ballot to open up and I get to vote for my player. And here, middle of May, we should figure out who gets in. And I have all the cards of the players on the ballot. But it's always interesting to see who the Red Ribbon Committee selects. And I get to go chasing a card. Get to get cards from pretty obscure sets and whatnot too, which is pretty great. So anyway, so why a channel? You know, and, you know, my thing is, you know, love cards, love collecting, and I want to have fun with them. You know, sit here in front of my phone and, you know, look at my baseball cards and show them and, you know, what have you. And you can see I have cards from pre-war to ultra modern, you know, not a ton of cards, but you know, that's what I got. And but I want to have fun with them. And even if I'm just talking to myself on these videos and whatnot, my kids can, you know, look at the videos later and whatnot, laugh and make fun of me, what have you. But you know, I just want to have fun with them. And, you know, I've been more of a voyeur, you know, checking out YouTube channels. I'm subscribed to tons of them. I'm not going to list them off now. I didn't write them down, and I'll forget a whole bunch. But one really kind of changed the game, and I think that was Greg at Midlife Cards. And because this is more interactive, right? We all know this. You know, there's like 6,000 subscribers to him or whatever. But that was a really cool thing. And, you know, and then getting to be in California, you know, I showed up to that card show. He was there. So that whole interactive thing and whatnot, that was great. And then, you know, I noticed that there's not a whole lot of St. Louis on the YouTube, right? But then Redneck Collector goes out, Billy Ball Game, Jason Everyday Collector, you know, the White Sox fan that's also a Cardinals fan. So, you know, I started commenting more, you know, not a ton, but, you know, I comment here and there. And I was like, oh, you know, comments and whatnot, that's just a little couple sentences or something like that. And I figure, you know, I just want to sit here and talk about my baseball cards. Especially like when I get to my Ozzie Smith collection, that'll be a lot of fun. On a couple Facebook groups, and that's kind of whatever. Like I said, it's just kind of one and done kind of thing. It's not really interactive, you know, not really getting to talk and all that other stuff. So my whole thing is I just want to have fun, you know, be a nerd, talk about my baseball cards. So some ideas I have, you know, there's Signs of the Pastime. He does a lot of the on-site kind of thing. I kind of want to do that. While I'm still in the Coast Guard, you know, I'll be going to, you know, California here in a month. Home port out of Seattle will be there this fall. Getting underway. Get to go see some really cool places, right? You know, go to a Giants game in Oracle Park, go to Mariners game in T-Mobile Park. The Cardinals will be in town while I'm there. That'll be fun. Excuse me. But then at the same time, like when I, you know, permanently come back to the St. Louis area, there's tons and tons of cool stuff around here, you know, where Sportsman's Park used to be, where the St. Louis Stars used to play. There's statues outside of Busch Stadium. You got the Hall of Fame now, although I don't know if you take videos inside the exhibits, but either way, just tons and tons of, you know, really cool stuff, you know, go out in public and look like a fool talking to a phone with my baseball cards. It'd be fun. One of the things is, you know, the players. You know, I got opinions about the players, and, you know, I think they get kind of shortchanged. Like, you know, Ozzie Smith is, oh, he's just all defense and black flips and can't hit. All right, well, you know, he's got almost 2,500 hits. That's a lot for a guy who can't hit. Same thing with Yadier Molina. Over 2,000 hits, full-time catcher from beginning to end. Didn't move to first base, none of that. But these players in their careers, it's like, you know, they're oversimplified. Yeah, I made that comment to Greg on one of his videos. Then obviously there's going to be pickups. There's going to be maybe some reveal stuff. Like I've done some grading, like you can see, like the SGC ones, I graded myself. There's Beckett one, I graded myself. Get into that, maybe another video. These PSA ones though, I bought these that way because, you know, if you're a serious collector, you got graded cards and things like that, and the number matters, what blah blah blah. But I think I'm kind of getting away from that. You know, it's not as important. I shouldn't say get away from that, but so don't be you know, when you see them in these card savers, it's not because I'm preparing to be graded. I like the form factor. You know, you get a stack of one touches compared to a stack of top loaders or magnetics or slabs. You know, it's just keeps them pretty good. But you never know, I might send a card in here or there to get graded, and I'll put it up on the YouTube just like everybody else does. Yeah, do some player highlights, and, you know, obviously, like, you know, don't really care about the whole subscriber thing. You know, I'm not so sure I'm going to be giving updates on my channel and subscriber counts and this, that, whatever. It's just, no, I just want to have fun. You know, if people like it, that'd be great. If only a few people like it, cool, you know. But anyway, I think that's kind of enough rambling for, you know, getting on the YouTube and who I am and some cards and whatnot. You know, I just kind of picked out ones that really made a whole lot of sense to me. Oh, dang, I forgot. So, you know, the card show, but it was this. Going out in public, you know, with my baseball cards, having fun. It was just like, you know, want to have more fun. So, you know, try to have a plan for the video and, you know, get this out there. I do deploy a lot. I think my next one will be the cards I bought while I was on deployment. They're already kind of put away, so I gotta get them all out and whatnot and do a video here and there, and hopefully y'all like it. So have a good one.